Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Johnson, and this is the Perpetual Chess Podcast. On Perpetual Chess, I have weekly conversations with the chess world's best players, promoters, and educators about their lives, careers, current projects, and best practices. Perpetual Chess is brought to you through the generosity of its Patreon and PayPal supporters. For more information, go to perpetualchesspod.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. We have another strong young chess player joining us this week. He is a 25-year-old grandmaster from the Ukraine originally, by way of Spain, Turkey, and now St. Louis, if my research is correct. He was the 2012 World Junior Champion, and he has just recently published a fun, informative book called Unconventional Approaches to Modern Chess, Volume 1, Rare Ideas for Black. Alex Ipatov, how you doing, Alex?
Good afternoon, Ben. I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. So I was just telling you before we started recording, I've been checking out your book. Why don't you tell our listeners a little background about the book? And of course, we'll eventually get into your background as well. So Alex, could you tell us a little bit about how this book came into being?
So the idea of writing a book came to me in August 2018, so like last summer. And I created an outline. And like a couple of weeks later, I started writing it. It was during the fall of 2018, and I think I was done by the beginning of November. So it took about 2 months to complete the book. However, the book was based on the multiple years of research, and I used a lot of my own opening analysis. So basically, I just put all my opening analysis and just either extended or cut them off. And the book was ready. And in the end of this year, I should be done with volume 2, so like rare ideas for white. And the book is, the main message of the book is to emphasize the importance of classics and the right fundamentals. And in the book, I try to convey the message that studying opening theory is not as important as people might think nowadays, because I noticed that many players on different levels, grandmasters, amateurs, club level players, they spend a lot of time analyzing openings. They turn on the engine. They try to research, some novelty in Najdorf, until move 20 or 30. But I think it's irrelevant. So, for example, you can look at how Jobava plays or Rapport. They play unconventional openings. They might get worse with white or with black. It doesn't matter. But they immediately bring their opponent into unknown territory where opening theory doesn't matter that much. And then gradually they outplay them. And this is, what my book is about practical approach to the game of chess.
Yeah, and it's fun. There's a few things I'd like to add, having just read the book on Forward Chess, as I was telling you before we recorded. And one is, for one thing, I just want to point out to listeners, you definitely practice what you preach. You've got your own games in here, and, you're playing like one knight A6 against the likes of Sam Shankland and, playing super strong players and still playing these openings that are considered, substandard or whatever term you want to use. The other thing is, of course, this is a topic that has come up a lot on this podcast since we talked chess improvement. So I found it refreshing to hear it. So you lay out in the introduction of the book that the trend of memorizing openings has become unhealthy in your mind. And you give 3 reasons. Chess is not fun with too much memorization. There's an opportunity cost, which I think is important, and that theory changes. So it's a good overview. And then you get into some, offbeat type openings like double fianchettos and, some sort of Philidor hybrids and on and on. So one thing that surprised me, though, is I felt like even in this book, I guess there's just for a player at your level, there's no escaping. But I felt like there was still a lot of high level games, and there was even theory in the non-theoretical lines.
Yeah, like in which line, for example?
Let's see. Well, like the double fianchetto, the B6 against the.
Yeah. It's actually, I think it's almost a sound opening. Maybe it's not that great as Grunfeld or like Slav, but it's not that bad. Of course, knight a6 and e5 objectively is much worse than double fianchetto. Double fianchetto, I think it's, you can play that opening regularly, as I did during 2013, 2015.
Yeah, and philosophically, I guess it's not that much different from like a Queen's Indian.
Right. So you just don't play e6. You try to save a tempo on keeping the pawn on e7.
So how did you come to, Alex, to this philosophy? What was this something that developed slowly over time, or were you kind of anti-opening from the beginning in your chess career?
I don't know. It's a good question. I never thought about it. I mean, so I guess it indeed came gradually. I played a lot of open tournaments and since I was a child. So since 2007, I was playing a lot of tournaments in Spain and then in other countries in Europe. And in order to be consistently good in opens, you have to consistently beat low-rated opponents, and it's not easy because nowadays everyone knows theory, and 10 years ago it was the same. Everyone had access to ChessBase and to Rybka, or maybe Stockfish didn't exist, but there was Rybka and some other engines, or Fritz, whatever. So you have to play something out of theory, because if you play, let's say, Petrov against a low-rated opponent, players are good nowadays. 20 to 100 point will not make a mistake if you don't pose problems. And if you want to pose problems, you have to, in my opinion, get the game out of theory as early as possible and make your opponent think. So that he doesn't feel comfortable. He doesn't feel comfortable in a position. He doesn't know where to put his pieces and so on. So maybe, answering your question, I think it came gradually just by playing many open tournaments and having the necessity to constantly win in the first couple of rounds to get to play stronger opponents. Because in open tournaments, you usually have to score 7 out of 9 or 8 out of 9 to tie for first or to be in top 3.
Okay. So you felt like it maximizes your chances, but you're also, you played against stronger players as well, or at least you're willing to. So was that something that evolved over time, a willingness to venture these openings against even other top GMs? I
think it came actually recently. Maybe a couple of years ago. Prior to that, I was quite afraid to play against grandmasters. I showed a lot of respect that I tried to play sound opening. I was passive. But nowadays I don't really have that much fear, maybe because I don't play that many tournaments, because now I'm focused on my education. So I try to split time equally between education and chess. So when I play chess, I try to enjoy. So against Shankland, I played last year when I was quite busy with school. So I wanted to have a fun game, and I think it was one. And I think against grandmasters, I started playing those openings just recently.
Okay, yeah, and I should have mentioned in the intro, you're at St. Louis University and you're getting an MBA, is that right?
No, I finished MBA last May.
Okay.
So actually about education, I finished MBA. I came to St. Louis in May 2017. I completed my MBA. It was a one-year MBA program in May 2018. Then I enrolled into Master of Supply Chain Management, and now I'm transferring to Master in Computer Science. And in the fall of 2019, I will begin Master in Computer Science. I think I'm going to withdraw from supply chain management program, because it'll be very hard to pursue 2 graduate degrees simultaneously and do well in both.
So what we'll get back to chess in a minute, but what made you change your mind about supply chain management as opposed to computer science?
Computer science, I think it's more fun. First of all, I like quantitative things. I did MBA because I didn't really have the quantitative background to go into mastering computer science or another quantitative field. But this year I spent on taking the prerequisites, and I think I'm more or less ready. To pursue a career in the computer science field. Not career, to pursue education.
Okay. And I hope you don't mind my asking, but are you able to get a chess scholarship for these subjects, for getting masters in these subjects?
Yes, of course. Otherwise, it would be quite expensive. To pay.
Well, that's great though. As we've talked about many times here on this show, it's great that they support chess and that you're able to put your formidable brain power to use in different fields.
Right. Yeah, I'm really grateful. To St. Louis Chess Club and St. Louis University. Greg Sintel, of course, for giving this opportunity to players from all over the world to pursue. Education. Free of cost, free. Yeah.
And how's life in St. Louis? You enjoy it there?
Yeah. Right now it's raining, but in general, I think it will soon become summer, and I'll go to play soccer. I like to play soccer as well. By the way.
Yeah, I think I saw you mention in your book you were playing at one of the Olympiads. You were playing soccer till midnight, basically every night.
Yeah, that's right. That's my game from E4, G6, D4, knight f6, E5, knight h5. I played against some play from Paraguay. No, not Paraguay. From Ecuador, maybe from some country from Latin America, and I got completely lost against 2200. But again, in that tournament, I was playing soccer. Almost every night for 3 or 4 hours.
That's fun. And were there other GMs out there with you?
Of course, there are many GMs. Right. Okay. Magnus was also playing occasionally.
Oh,
because
cool.
He was in Tromsø, in his country. The problem was that it was a small field, and not everyone who wanted to play could play. So they were playing elimination, and I think Magnus didn't have that great team. I mean, so sometimes his team was was eliminated, so he had to wait. I mean, like for another half an hour to play again, and he really often didn't like it, so he would just go and leave.
Oh, okay,
he's very competitive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've had to deal with that. They play a lot of pickup basketball here in the States. Yeah, and it's never fun when you have to wait. And he's, as Magnus, people are usually waiting for him, not the other way around. So
right, yes.
All right. Well. Anyway, let's take it back to chess. I mean, that stuff is interesting to me. But we have some questions. So I sent you these in advance. We have a couple supporters of the podcast who send in questions. I teased the book a little bit when I announced that you were going to be the guest, and it seemed to strike a chord with people. I mean, I think people don't wholly know how to form the opinion of what you're saying, because it might be considered somewhat, I mean, I feel like radical is too strong a word, but slightly outlandish, the openings you're advocating and the general philosophy. So I'm going to read these two questions together because I feel like there's some overlap, and then you can just sort of take it as you wish. So,
okay.
So the first question I'm taking another crack at a name I have mispronounced in the past. So it's Bradley Jupri. And he asks, if players should not focus on learning opening variations, what exactly should be studied out of the openings to help a player improve the most? Is it best to learn and play a few variations deeply, or play a variety of openings sticking to basic principles? And then the second question, related question, from Jerry Wells, he says, as a scholastic coach and adult improver, I'm curious about the long-term benefits of playing for surprises in the opening. Although I'm sympathetic to the Maverick cause, I usually agree with the argument that playing standard openings like the Italian or Queen's Gambit decline serves the lifelong player in greater stead, not because of the lines memorized, but because of the structures understood. So a lot from there to tackle, but you take it anywhere you want, Alec.
Yeah, I'll just open your email just to make sure I see those questions in front of my eyes. I think I'll go with the first question. Let me find it. About the long-term benefits, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just a second. Yeah, so I think as far as long-term benefits of playing like surprise openings are concerned, I don't think there are any of them. I think is just not that good. I mean, it might come surprising from an author of an conventional, from an author that wrote a book on sideline openings. But again, I mean, my message in the book was that study classics. I mean, classical games, Capablanca, Alekhine, whatever I mentioned there. I mean, Fischer, Karpov, Kasparov. I mean, I think all of them can be considered as classics. Rubinstein, for example. Solve studies, solve tactics. I mean, learn typical plans and typical pawn structures, and then play what you want. But don't just focus on playing sidelines for the sake of it. This is just like a small part of the picture. I mean, so I personally don't think that there are any benefits just playing sideline openings if you don't have a good foundation, the classical foundations. If you have, you can play whatever you want. I mean, you can see how Rapport is playing. I mean, if we recall his match against Schenkel, they played the Rapid and Bliss in St. Louis last month. I mean, Rapport completely destroyed Sam. So it was like two different approaches. It was a very interesting match for me to see because Sam is well known for his great opening preparation, whereas Rapport is known for his unconventional approach to chess. And we saw that. I mean, it was a one-sided match.
Yeah, so, I think in Rapid in particular, someone like GM Richard Rapport, who you mentioned, I think he might have an advantage because you kind of set people on their back foot, and they don't have time to work through everything over the board in a 30-minute game.
Yeah. Also, I mean, but did I respond to the question properly, or shall I give it another try? I'm
no,
sure.
I think you did. I mean, having read your book, I would just add that you basically advocate in the book. You're not running away from studying the structures, even though the openings themselves that you recommend are somewhat unorthodox. You're not saying like it's fairly deep in the weeds of these openings, and if you were to read these books and go through the games, you would understand something about the structures. So and the book has lots of different openings, and I'm guessing, I don't remember, as I recall, Bradley is not I think he's rated below 1800 if I'm correct. And for someone like that, you talk about the importance of not only playing these openings, but you need to catch people off guard. It's not just enough for you to play the double V and Kettle because you need something else because they're going to prepare for whatever they see you might play. But I think the lower you go down the rating ladder, the less important that becomes because there's just less preparation generally. And even if people do prepare for you, they're not necessarily going to prepare correctly. So I would say, Bradley, that based on what Alex wrote in his book, you can just study a couple, and then mainly it's the opportunity cost precept that you lay out in your book that like you say, study the classics, learn structures, and I think you also say somewhere in the book, learn endgames before openings.
Yeah, that was advised by the third world champion, Jose Raul Capablanca. This is the one he gave 100 years ago, and I think it's still applicable today. Yeah. It might appear boring because I understand that studying openings it's much more fun. There are a lot of games, so you can turn on the engine anytime you want. But I don't think there are really like long-term benefits. I mean, I think maybe there are short-term benefits. You might pump your rating quickly, like let's say like 200 rating points, but then you'll be stuck there because you lack a foundation to go further. Whereas if you study classics, you might not improve as quickly, but you will improve steadily. And you'll have more potential for growth. If I hope I make my point.
Yeah, I think so. And then I think that this also pretty well covers the question from Jerry Wells. I mean, he's just asking, is it still useful to study standard openings like the Italian and the Queen's Gambit declined? And obviously there's many more examples.
And I really wonder what does he mean by studying. I mean, like memorizing opening theory, or like modern games, like opening theory, or just understanding the typical plans.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it would be more understanding the typical plans. And as I look at the question again, he actually says playing standard openings like them.
Yeah. I think this is always helpful. I mean, to know to study plans and pay less attention to what modern theory says. I mean.
Yeah, and there's a lot more that could be said about this, but one thing just for listeners is you have to generally know what your own goal is in chess. I mean, if you're really trying to maximize your results, or if you're trying to gain an appreciation for chess, those can be separate things and not necessarily have the same goal. So I do think that if you're these could be looked at in my mind kind of like study hacks as a hardworking student. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Alex?
Can you repeat the question again?
I would think of a lot of these lines as sort of like study hacks. You know what Cliff Notes are? Like where instead of reading a book, you read the summary of the book sort of thing?
Yeah, could be. I don't know. And also those openings were quite subjective. I mean, they were mostly based on my own opening repertoire. It could be anything else. So it's not like I suggest that this is like the openings you should play. I mean, this is just like one subset of unconventional openings you can play. I mean, so you can see, I mean, as just as a help guide, or just I don't know, as a reference for club level players, or for players who play opens. I mean,
yeah, and I still think. Sorry, you could keep going if you want.
Yeah, but again, the big picture is just not to memorize those openings that I provide. It's just you can play whatever you want. For example, this openings for 300 pages, but the main message is actually introduction and the conclusion. Focus your time on those like classical things and play whatever you want. And then I give like many openings that you can play and surprise your opponents. I mean,
and whatever opening you play, it's beneficial to try to understand the structure, whether it's...
Of course, right. Otherwise, I mean, yes, it doesn't make sense, I mean, to study those crazy openings and with the first, follow the computer recommendation. Try to understand what your typical plans are, even if it doesn't go well with a computer recommendation, I mean.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and you talk a lot about how you don't really... Like there are positions where the engine might give an edge to the other side, but if you feel like it's a dynamic position, that's good enough for you.
If it suits my style and doesn't suit the opponent's style, so we should also take those things into consideration. I mean, so when I choose some offbeat opening against a certain opponent, it depends on his style, depends on my style, depends on the tournament situation, like it depends on many factors. I mean, right. So against a solid opponent, I would prefer to get him into a dynamic position, whereas against a more dynamic play, I'll try to get in a bit position, but still like more solid. I mean, so there are many factors. I mean, that depend on what opening I choose. Okay. That's why it's beneficial to have a couple of openings so you can choose from.
Yeah, it makes sense. Couple more from the book, Alex. Number one, I thought it was funny. You say somewhere that you're a big fan of developing your knights to the edge of the board.
Yeah, it's like for fun. I said I just noticed a pattern. I like to play knight h6, knight h6, and it was why I had a game against Marta Fierro. It'll be actually in the second volume of the book when I played knight h3, then knight c2, knight f2. And actually, knights are placed well because they support the center, right? And knight from f2 covers the e4 square. Knight from c2, protects, or puts pressure on d4 square.
Yeah, so it's not so much. It's not so much the edge itself. It's the edge as a route to f2 and c2 and f7 and
right, to control the center actually, which is still people play knight f3, knight c3, and this is how coaches teach beginners, right? Just develop your piece towards the center. But when I play knight h3, knight h3, knight f2, knight c2, or with black knight h6, knight h6, knight f7, knight f7, it has the same goal. I just want to control the center, and I want to control the key squares e5 and d5 if I'm black. So knight on f7 controls e5, knight on c7 controls d5, and as white, knight on c2, knight f2, they control d4 and e4. So same goal, just control the center, which is according to chess principles.
Right, yeah. And one other question that I couldn't help but wonder in reading your book, and there's sort of a visceral dislike for how much memorization is required these days for a player of your level. So I don't know if you saw the news that there's going to be a Chess 960 World Championship later this year, FIDE sanctioned. I think they're calling it Fischer Chess, but whichever. So what's your opinion of that potential avenue for chess?
I think it's great. I think it's I think it would be beneficial for chess players. Rapid Blitz and Chess 96, Chess 960. Those are great initiatives. I don't think I'll be able to play myself because I'm currently pursuing my education for the next 2 years. I'm playing only tournaments within the United States. But of course I will follow, and I think it's a great initiative. I don't know much about the subject.
Okay.
But I really don't like to memorize that many openings, especially Grunfeld, for example. I used to play Grunfeld, and if you want to play it, you have to keep in mind a lot of variations, just really a lot. I have a story to tell. In 2015, I played the World Cup, and in the first round, I played Chiparinov, and we prepared Slav against him, like Schlechter variation in Slav. And I managed. Okay, with black I drew, with white I won, so I passed to round 2, and I played Ilya. And against him I didn't want to play Slav. So in one day I had to refresh all the Grunfeld theory, which was for 8 and 9 hours I was just refreshing the lines I had in my ChessBase files. And he played something else. He played his surprising on move 5. So yeah, since then I don't really like to play Grunfeld anymore, because if you forget something, you just might lose very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've mentioned in past interviews that you've more or less taken the decision not to play chess professionally. Do you think that your dislike of the amount of memorization required, is that a contributing factor?
I don't know. Did I say that I want to play chess professionally?
Yeah, you said you were. Yeah, I think it was an interview with Daniel King from one of the Olympiads.
Oh, okay. It was 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. So has your opinion changed about that?
Why? I would like to be still a professional. I just need to complete my studies, and I'm still playing tournaments. And upon the completion, I would like to get back and play more regularly. I would like to break 2,700 rating barrier. So yeah, I think since then I changed. I just want to get my education first, and then get back to chess.
Okay, that's good to hear. And I think it's kind of it's a win-win when the education is free. It can't hurt.
That's correct, right? And still, I'm relatively young. I'm not that young, but I'm still young enough. just to learn something new and then come back to chess.
So when you come back to it, what's do you have a plan in mind in terms of how much you'll play and what specific aspects of the game you would study?
Okay, I'm planning to stay in the United States. So currently, I'm in the process of applying for green card.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the future, I'm planning to play mostly national tournaments like US Open, World Open, Chicago Open, so to play more American tournaments. And upon completion of my studies, I'm also planning to start giving lessons, open my own school, and run summer camps, maybe do some scholastic chess, and of course, write more chess books.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of if you're going to stay in St. Louis? Or?
It depends. I don't know, but somewhere in the United States.
Okay. And so you grew up in, I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce the city, of course, but Lviv, Ukraine?
In Lviv, yeah. Lviv, Lvov, yeah. Yes, I grew up there.
So legendary chess town.
That's correct. That is correct. Yes, that's true. Maybe the strongest one in the Soviet Union.
So what's in the? So Ivanchuk is there. What other well-known players are from your hometown?
So Ivanchuk is actually like he is from other city, but he spent most of his life in he moved when he was young, right? So he of course he is one of the Vivians. Then let's see if you know those players. I mean, because there are many strong Ukrainian players who are not that like known in the world. For example, Kryvoruchko. Have you heard?
Say the name again.
Yuriu Kryvoruchko. He plays for the Ukrainian national team. He's like 2690, 2690, 2700. Oleg Romanishin, two-time Ukrainian champion. He was also 2650. Brothers Vovk, they're like also 2600. Martyn, Kravtsiv, Mariya Muzychuk and Anna Muzychuk, I guess you know.
Of course, yes.
Those two. Adrian Michalchishin, he's a famous coach and the author.
So, yeah.
Beliavsky, Alexander Beliavsky, Romanishin. Like, at some point I was number 1 or 2 in Turkey. I was like number 10 in my city. Which
wow.
Was very funny.
That's incredible. So, what do you think? What do you think contributes to there being so many super strong players?
I think this is a past. I think it was still based upon like Soviet tradition. Where chess was very popular. But now I think many Ukrainian players are like either leaving the country or I don't know, or stop playing chess. But mostly, like for example, Ilya Nizhnik, he's in St. Louis right now, right?
Right.
Yaroslav Zherebukh, whom you interviewed last year, he was also in St. Louis. Now he's also in the United States. Pavel Vorontsov at Texas Tech. Bortnik, like one of the best like bullet players in the world, also like 2600 player. He went to Brown. He stayed at Brownsville for half a year. Now he opened his chess school in Miami.
Okay.
So who else? Evgeny Jack Stembulak, also Texas Tech 2500 player. Andrei Barishpolits, like the top board of the Texas Tech team. Alexander Onishchuk, one of the strongest American players who was also born in Ukraine. So if you see, I think all the top guys I played in Ukrainian youth championships there right now in the United States.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so it must be a strange feeling seeing like your old friends all over the U.S.
Right, and so I played, for example, against Yaro. I played first time when we were both 7 years old. Actually, he was also from my city.
Funny.
I forgot to mention him. So I knew him like since we were unrated. Against Ilya, I played for the first time against Nizhnik when he was 8 years old. I was 11. And now, yes, we all grew up and we actually ended up in the same city.
Huh. That's
so I don't really think that Ukraine will keep producing so many like strong players. I think actually the tradition is gradually dying in Ukraine. I'm not sure about Russia because again, many players are just immigrating.
Yeah.
So the talent is like moving to other countries.
Yeah, I've heard people say that about Russia too. Even though if you look at the top 100 list, there's plenty of Russian players. But yeah, the younger generation, especially when you compare it to places like India and China,
right? That's correct, right?
Not quite as...
Only Artemiev, but others, like nothing special. Let's take FIDE. He's a very very strong grandmaster, but he's 24, I think already, right?
Yeah.
Kasparov was already like the world champion at that age.
Yeah.
And Indian young players become grandmasters at 12 or 13. So I don't know any Russian player who became grandmaster at this young age, like nowadays.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I hope, these things go in cycles. So I know that the infrastructure isn't as strong as it once was, but hopefully we haven't heard the last, but just because Russia and Ukraine and all of the former Soviet republics, they just have such a storied history that I would like to see it keep going or resurrect. So Alex, as I warned you, one thing that we always like to talk about here is chess improvement and chess books. So I know you mentioned in your book that you're, and we've talked about, you're an advocate of studying the classics. So
right.
What are the classics in your mind? Like what are your favorite chess books, both for your own development and ones that you find yourself recommending for any students you've worked with?
So most of the books that I read, they were in Russian. So I'm not sure like those books were translated into English, but many of them were. For example, Alekhine's Best Games Manual. I think it's like a blue book in English. In Russian, it was a completely different book. So for example, like favorite games of Alexander Alekhine with his own comments. So I think this is like one of those books that you should study. Like you take a World Championship, the World Champions book, where he goes over his own games. And this is how you learn typical pawn structures, like plans and ideas. So it can be Capablanca, Alekhine. I think most of the world champions, they wrote one or more books about their career.
Yeah. So, and is Alekhine your favorite player?
Yeah, I think so, right? Because I think I'm sort of dynamic player, and so was he. And I don't know. When people ask me this question, I usually say it's Alekhine.
Yeah. What about like favorite games? Do you have a favorite game of all time, whether of yourself or just amongst the classics?
Good question about the favorite game.
I mean, I can help you out. I did see in one interview you mentioned your game with Niels Grandiolius.
Right. Yes, the pawns, right. But once you ask me my favorite game or classical favorite game, I wouldn't want to put my game in front of classical game, because I think those games should have more importance than my games. So
I guess I should distinguish between from an educational standpoint as opposed to like from your most memorable your career highlights.
Right. So classical right now they don't come. I mean, I see like many games like Rubinstein, for example, where he won with like two bishops, rook takes c3, rook h3. If you know that.
I don't know it offhand. Do you know who he played in that game?
I don't remember. I recorded one video for YouTube in Turkish. I mean, but I Rotlevi, I think. Rotlevi.
Yeah. I do. Okay.
Something like that, right? Like, of course, I mean, like their opponents didn't play that well because competition level wasn't that strong. There were a couple of strong players in the world, and pretty much everyone else was much weaker. But still, I mean, those games show, I mean, like typical ideas, plans, and of course, I mean, some of them have tactical beauty, like rook c3, rook h3 is really beautiful. Yeah, but I cannot like say some game off my head right now.
And what about, Alex, what about general improvement advice? I mean, I'm sure you get asked this a lot in many forms, but if like predominantly the people who listen to this podcast are adults looking to get better at chess. So what advice, if you have a limited amount of time, say 5 to 10 hours a week, what do you think the best approach is to trying to improve?
Okay, so if you have, let's say 10 hours a week, so it's, let's say 1 hour and a half per day, right?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds reasonable.
And I think the best would be to allocate the time equally. So study chess 1 hour and a half a day, rather than like, let's say 10 hours over the weekend, like 5 hours on Saturday, 5 hours on Sunday. I think it's not good. I mean, not to do anything for 5 days and then just try to catch up on 2 days. I think this would be wrong. I think better to spread out the training process equally among the days, like before work or after work. So 1 hour and a half. Out of those 1 hour and a half hours, let's say maybe like 15 minutes, like to half an hour to do tactics. This should be done on a regular basis. And then go over one classical game at least, like from Alekhine's manual or from any other book, just to make sure that book is written by a world-class player. And like it cannot be like games of Alekhine written by, let's say, someone else, like of much lower caliber. It should be written by world champion, or let's say Rubinstein, who was like of that level,
right,
world champion level. And let's say half an hour for that game. The quality matters more than quantity. It's not how many games you go over. It's like whether you learn something from what you go over. So let's say one game, but carefully, and trying to understand the plans. And for the remaining half an hour or like 45 minutes, depending how much is left, to do endgames, I think.
Okay. And how would you do endgames?
I think I'm not sure. I mean, it depends on the level of a like podcast listener. I mean, but I would advise Mark Dvoretsky Endgame Manual. But I don't know if it's advanced material or not. I'm really not sure.
I mean, I have heard in the past like 2100 on up, but some people say a little lower, some people say a little higher. But yeah, definitely a higher level Endgame. But I mean, a similar book for a much lower level is Silman's Endgame course, which
this is what I heard. Right? Again, I never read any of his books. I know he wrote many books, but I don't know, so I cannot suggest something I didn't read.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. And in terms of how you do the tactics, do you think it matters? Like we've had a lot of people advocate solving studies, but then there's also tactics books, tactics trainers. Do you think there's much of a difference as long as you're doing it basically every day?
As a child, I think I was solving more studies. I believe. At least my coach was printing out and giving me home. Because back then I got my first laptop when I was 12 years old. So I didn't have laptop. I mean, like for the first 6 years I was studying chess. So he was just giving me a huge printout and I was trying to solve and write down the solution. So this is what I recall. So I was doing quite a lot of endgame studies. As far as just regular combinations are concerned, I guess there are like good books. I mean, I think Agar's books are considered to be good, but again, they're for strong players, I assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're quite often recommended here just because we talk to so many strong players. But yeah, again, it would I would think at least Class A at the lowest for
But chess.com has good chess.com tactics trainer is quite good, I think.
Yeah. And
it's just like 10 hours, it's like 10 minutes a day chess.com tactics trainer and the rest like 1 or 2 studies like in the remaining like 20 minutes.
And did you ever get bitten by the puzzle rush addiction that swept the chess world?
Yeah, I was doing occasionally. My record is not that high. It's like 47. I mean, I see people do like much more than that, like 50 or 55.
Too busy with school, I guess.
Well, it's very competitive. If I start doing it, I'm just very addictive. I mean, when I do it, I do it like for 2 or 3 hours. I mean, I just cannot do one and forget. I mean, I want to do better and better. So I don't think it's like really, I spend my time well because I really have a lot of other things these days.
Yeah. And do you feel like generally when you I know you had some success pretty quickly when you were introduced to chess as a kid. Do you feel like you had a natural talent for tactics in particular and chess generally?
I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. I mean, I know that I was very active child. So when my mother brought me when she came to the chess club and she asked the coach, I mean, like my son is very active. He likes to play outdoor. Will it be good if he plays chess? Because he thought, I mean, it might not be. She thought that it might not be an appropriate game for me because I mean I'm physically active child and chess requires like focus and dedication. But the chess coach said is great. Just bring him in. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, and about talent, I don't know. I've heard different opinion. I mean, people talking about me. Some people say I do, some people don't. I mean, so Dubov, for example, he said the only thing I can do, it was like 5 years ago before he became world record, because I think we were quite close friends like during 2000, from 2013 maybe.
Okay.
So I was talking to him then, and he was like, the only thing you can do is objectively evaluate the position, something like that. I mean, so I can evaluate the position. The only thing I could do according to him.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. That's Russian GM Daniil Dubov for anyone who didn't catch that. That's funny. I mean, and it's all relative. I mean, because to most of our listeners and to me, like anyone who reaches the level you have who's 2650 knocking on the door of 2700, like to me, that just seems like a staggering talent. But then I know there are other people who evaluate players through the lens of like, can they be world champion? You know, like,
well, but again, talking, we were like again talking closely. I was talking closely to Daniel in that period, and I remember in Tromsø when I was playing Vassily. So in the World Cup, he was facing, I think Fyodorchuk, and then he beat Ponomaryov, and then he lost to Korobov. But if he beat Korobov, I think he would end up playing Nakamura. And this is what he told me. I remember. So if in classical game, and back then Daniel was like 26-10 maybe or something, he considered himself as a slight favorite against Nakamura, which was really, really funny to hear.
Uh-huh.
In Rapid they were equal, and in Blitz Nakamura was slightly better. So, but in classical game, Dubov, who was like 26-10, was better than Nakamura, who was already like 27, I don't know, 80. So whatever his opinion, of course, is like very, very subjective. I mean.
Right. Yeah, and you do need a healthy dose of confidence to reach high heights in the chess world, but.
And last year he won the World Rapid. I mean, like in a Swiss tournament where Carlsen and all the best players played.
Yeah, incredible achievement. Yeah. So what do you think about the next World Championship cycle? Is there, I mean, the consensus seems to be forming that it's hard to imagine. Magnus is on a tear right now for one thing, but even beyond that, hard to imagine someone other than Fabiano, ascending to challenge him. Do you think that's true, or is there anyone that you think could step up?
Well, right now, indeed, it seems like there are 2 players. As Magnus said himself in one of the interviews, there are only 2 players in the world, like me in Caruana. And I think, I mean, again, I'm not the right person to judge. I mean, I'm like number like 109 in the world. I mean, so I cannot say that. I mean, like 7 people in front of me are like not suitable for the World Championship title. So I cannot say that. But according to Carlsen, there is only Caruana, and I think he knows better, right? He's a world champion.
Yeah. Yeah, and and unlike some top players in the past, I mean, he tends to say what he's really thinking. So
Right.
yeah, I guess we have to take him at his word. So I know I saw in your book you've played Peter Svidler, you've played Sam Shanklin. What other like world class top 30 type players have you played? And is there one game that you find the most memorable?
Actually, when you were asking the question, I started thinking already, and I played against. Okay, in 2013, I was played the top board for Turkish team in the World Team Championship. So although the tournament didn't go well for me, I played against a number of strong players. I drew Ivanchuk was black, but then I lost a lot of games. Like against Kramnik was white, against Aronian was black, and I think that's it for those like top.
Okay, and
top 10 players. And against Kramnik, I think was the most memorable. I lost, but it was a very good game. I mean, if you can find it after the interview, if you can find it right now on chessgames.com, it was a great lesson. I mean, I played like a chicken. I betrayed myself because I showed immense like respect for the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't play any offbeat openings back then against people like Kramnik. I played d4, knight f3, bishop g5. Mm-hmm. So I didn't play any theory. I tried just to play like e3, c3, and he played a fantastic positional game. I think it was mentioned in a couple of the books like written after that period. Yeah, so he just the center was completely closed, but then he played e5. It was a positional piece sacrifice, and my position collapsed very quickly. I mean, I think it'd be good for you like to take a look at that game and see what you think.
Yeah, I will. That sounds like typical Kramnik.
Right.
Yeah, amazing. So when you get back to chess, you'll be mostly in the U.S., I guess. Do you have a study plan in place?
A study plan?
Yeah, for how you would work to improve your chess. I mean,
my chess.
Yeah.
Well, I still like try to train regularly, and I check like current theory trends. I check top games. Let's say Shenzhen Masters, where I think Giri and Hare Krishna are leading. There is another tournament, Grand Chess Classic. I'm checking the games. I try to see what's new.
Okay.
And I try to like solve tactics. I do puzzle rush. I mean, from time to time. I think I did like 470 times up to now.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm still like more or less active, and I talk to chess players on a daily basis. I mean, like Slow Chess team has already like 6 grandmasters, 7 grandmasters, and we meet very often, not only for training on chess, but we also play soccer together. Like for example, I like to hang out with Francesco Rambaldi. He's like Italian grandmaster on Slow Chess team. Then Akshat Chandra, American grandmaster, and there is Greek international master, but he's like 25-60. I mean, so he's like almost like a grandmaster. Greek player Nicholas Theodoro.
Okay.
So he'll be grandmaster soon. Clearly, he has a lot of talent. So we play soccer and we do chess together. I mean, so I do chess like on daily basis. Plus, I'm writing I'll start writing volume 2 soon as well.
Okay, but you enjoy your studies as well, or is that like more of a grind for you?
No, I do enjoy my studies. That's why I switched from supply chain management. If I wanted to have easy life, I would have stayed in business school, I guess. Yes, if I stayed in business school, there'll be a very easy life for me. Yeah. But since I want to learn something, I just made my life more difficult, and I'm switching to computer science.
Okay.
Because exactly I want to get something out of school, not just a diploma.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you speak a bunch of languages too, right?
Yeah, I don't know, 4.5 maybe. It depends on, if I go to Spain, maybe I'll be able to say 5, because I used to speak Spanish when I was playing Spain for 3 years, but I haven't had enough practice for many years of it, like for 5 years maybe.
And
so I don't have confidence. Yes.
And did you live in Spain?
No, I never lived. People think I lived, but I only represented Spain. I played for a Catalan club, so maybe on average I would spend like 2 to 3 months every year.
Okay.
Playing tournaments, like let's say from 2008 to 2011. Mm-hmm. But I never like permanently lived. I mean, it was normal to come in July and leave in September and play all summer tournaments like near Barcelona. But it was just during a short time period. It was never like...
That sounds like the good life to me, Alex.
Right, but it was not that easy, of course, because I was from Ukraine. I mean, we had to... My parents would either take a credit in the bank to afford that trip and hope that they would win something back from tournaments. So it was not an easy life. I mean, it was real struggle.
Yeah, that makes sense. I shouldn't have been so quick to fantasize about it.
Right. I can tell a story. It doesn't, like, my mother likes to tell the story. I mean, actually, because she remembers better. I was like 14, and my mother wanted me to go to Europe to play some tournaments. And my coach at that time, he was like international grandmaster Mikhail Kazakov, let's say 2480 player, strong grandmaster. He brought like prospects about tournaments, like bulletins. Like there'll be some tournament in Spain in August. And my mother, thought that I should go there, but we didn't have enough funds to afford the trip. So she and my father, who was alive back then, they took a credit in the bank for 1,000 euros, I think. And they were, we went to Spain for 23 days, and then they were paying back it for 1 year, like 1,000 euros.
Wow.
So it was like it wasn't easy to become a international player.
Yeah. The sacrifices that parents make is.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And now, I would say it's paid off in that you're able to get all this education based on your success in the chess world.
Right. There's no way I would get this otherwise. I would get scholarship otherwise.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Alex, I think we've hit most of the major topics I had highlighted. So you're working hard on your studies. You're working hard in chess. You're playing soccer and socializing with some other strong chess players. Is there anything else we're missing in terms of your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think that's it. And pretty much, yes.
Cool. And do you have any tournaments coming up?
I was planning to play a couple of tournaments in summer. Maybe some of them in St. Louis, and some of them in some other states. For example, I'm thinking to play in U.S. Game 30-60 National Championship in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
It'll be in Charlotte. I played it last year, but wasn't too successful. Although I scored 13 out of 15 games, I lost UCF rating. So I had to basically beat everyone just to finish first.
Okay.
It's just crazy. So you just go and you have to not to make a single draw, because it's either four rounds for game 60, 5 rounds for game 30.
So what is it about that tournament that's appealing to you?
It's a national championship.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, it has a national title, so it'd be nice to go there. It's only 2 days. I'll be taking summer classes at school during summer, so there'll be no break for me in terms of school. But I can afford to go there for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one other question I did remember, one other topic I wanted to talk about is you having represented Turkey. So in the old interview I mentioned earlier with Daniel King, you had not yet been to Turkey, even though you were representing them at the Olympiad.
That's correct. Yes. I was coming there very often, but I was never living. Yeah.
Okay. So you did visit there. What is? I've heard great things about Istanbul in particular, but I've never been. Oh, is that where you went, or were you elsewhere in Turkey when you would visit?
I was elsewhere. No, actually, in Istanbul, I spent many nights in the airport, in the hotels near the airport. But in the city center, maybe I was 10 hours total or something like that. So Istanbul, unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to see that much, but I've seen Ankara, Izmir. And
did you pick up some Turkish?
Yeah. My wife is Turkish.
Okay.
I still have practice. I think my Turkish should be better than Spanish right now because of practice.
Okay.
Because I hear it every day, and I think I talk to her in English. She talks to me in Turkish, but I understand them, and sometimes I reply in a mix of Turkish and English. So yes, this language still exists.
And is she there with you in St. Louis?
That's right. Yes.
Oh, that's nice, and yeah, that'll help you learn the language for sure. Do you think you'll be continuing to represent them? I know you mentioned you're applying for a green card.
Right. If I get a green card, it would be a smart idea to switch federations. But it depends on the U.S. government. As you know, the situation is not certain. Nowadays.
Yeah.
If I'm granted a green card, so I think it's a good thing to do. To switch to U.S.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, especially as you say, if you're planning on putting down roots here, which I do feel like we're lucky to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope U.S. government thinks likewise.
Yeah, I wish I had some pull with them, but just a chess podcast host, unfortunately. So Alex, if anyone wants to keep up with you, what is the best way?
The best way, I think my website is still up. It's not really that. It hasn't been updated in a long time, but the contact form should be working. So if someone sends me a message through my website, I think I should still be able to get it through my email, and people can contact me through my email directly.
Okay, yeah. So it's okay to share your address.
I can give my school address for now, which I also check every day, I mean, because I'll be at the university for next 2 years. I mean, so
okay,
you can give my school email. I can write you down in chat after that.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and good luck with everything. And listeners, you should check out the book. I mean, Alex covers a lot of stuff, and this is how to say this. I mean, you alluded to it earlier, but this is your blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, these are openings that you played and work that you've put in.
That would be also be unethical to recommend something I have never played, right? I mean, because many people do that. They just recommend some openings which they never played. And then readers have to go and lose the games, I mean, their own games, which is not fair. But in my case, I lost many games myself, so I know what I recommend. I mean,
yeah.
So, for example, Andrew Tang, if you remember that G6, Bishop D7, E6 line, it was the last round of the US Open, and I lost quite a lot, I mean, by losing that game.
Yeah, so Andrew Tang, legendary online bullet player, Penguin GM. Right. Alex mentions in the book that there was one, he had a line that he thought he could trot out there, but Andrew caught him with what you consider to be the best line against it.
I didn't know that back then. Actually, I wrote him into at that time. I didn't know how to refute that line, but I think he prepared with it. Like, I think he checked what computer thinks, and he managed to get an opening advantage. Right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you, from that game, since it was as you mentioned in the book, and it was an important one. Do you feel like he was he prepared for you specifically, or did he just happen to have something or happen?
I think he was also prepared because the game was the previous game finished, let's say, at 12 o'clock. He had like full day to prepare. I mean, okay. American tournaments are usually like 2 rounds a day or 3 rounds a day, right?
Right.
US Open, it was like 1 round a day, so he had the full night and full morning and full afternoon to prepare.
So he just checked everything that you played, and that was.
Yeah, I just play a couple of offbeat openings. I mean, he most likely looked at all of them, and Bummer. He looked deep enough, I mean, to get an opening advantage. But about that game, I mean, I didn't mention it in the book, I mean, but I can mention, I guess now, as you remember, one of the players passed away during the last round. Right,
yeah. Yeah.
So it was actually, I think it was also partially influenced because, I mean, the game was, the clocks on all boards were stopped after 1 hour after he played c5. I mean, after he got the opening advantage, but he was like 20 minutes down the clock. And I was still in the fighting spirit, right? I mean, I'm fine getting a worse position, fighting on. But then the games were resumed 4 hours later. And yes, after that, I mean, it was a one-sided game.
Yeah, that is.
I didn't mention this in the book. I mean, just not to like skew the picture.
Right.
But I can talk about this right now.
Yeah.
So the games resumed after 4 hours.
Yeah, that's a unique situation for sure. And I do remember that story. Obviously, a very sad story to have someone pass away in the middle of a tournament. So.
Right. Yes. It actually happens quite a lot. Also in Tromsø Olympiad in the last round, it happened.
Wow. Man.
Yeah. Similar. Yeah.
Be careful out there, chess players.
Right.
Okay. Well, Alex, I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to Volume 2. Is that still in the works?
Yes, I'll start working as soon as spring semester finishes, like in 2.5 weeks or something. Yes, it should be the book should be ready by the end of summer, and then it's up to Thinkers Publishing when they will publish it.
Okay, sounds good. And I will link to where you can get this book, besides Forward Chess, where you can get the physical copy, listeners. But yeah, if you're looking to avoid some theory, which I think might be a good use of your time, then yeah, you should check this book out. And Alex, good luck with everything, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks to everyone who makes Perpetual Chess possible. Of course, that includes Matthew Passy, my producer, and Geert Vanderveld for supplying the intro music. I also want to thank everyone who helps spread the word about the show. That includes people who tell their friends, tweet about it, share on Facebook. Apparently Instagram is a thing. Every little bit helps grow the show. But most of all, I want to thank people who support the show financially. I've said this before, but Perpetual Chess is my most gratifying but least paying work. If everyone who listened to the show were able to kick in $1 a month, it would be my best paying and most gratifying work. So I want to thank those who are able to provide financial support. That includes extra special thanks to Chessable.com, Quality Chess Books, the Capital City Chess Club, Dan O'Hanlon, Greg Shahadi, John Jernigan, and Todd Bryant. And I also want to thank all of my Patreon and PayPal perpetual partners. Here comes the list. You guys ready? Here we go. Ace Vallega, Adam Ralph of ChessEngland.com, Adam Vrancourt, Adrian Gutierrez, Alex Pejas, Benjamin Handelman, BetterChessTraining.com, Bill Moran, Brett Howard Lynn, Brian Mullis. I am Carlos Perdomo of ChessAtlanta.com, Chad Hilton, Chad Oliver, Chris Balcom, Chris Flanagan, Chris Wainscott, Christopher Baumgartner, Christopher Chabris, Christopher Wood. Good job, Christophers. I am Christoph Zalicki, aka Chess Explained, Coach J's Chess Academy, Daniel Gell, Daniel Ginsberg, Daniel Lucas, Daniel Naylor, Daniel Schaefer. Good job, Daniels. Dave Saylor, David Cramley of Chessable.com, Dwayne Edmonds, Ethan Smith. I am Elect Donnie Ariel Esquire. Fox Valley Chess Club of Aurora, Illinois, Frank Tortoris, MD, Gary Andrews, Gary Lewis, Geert Vanderbilt, Gerard Barta, Giovanni Russo, Harish Srinivasan, GM Jakob Ogar of Quality Chess Publishing, James Bonastia, Jason Willem, Jeff Anderson, Jeffrey Martello, John Fernandez, John Fontaine, John Hartman, Jen Shahadi, Jens Green, Jerry Wells, John Thompson, GM Josh Friedel, Kari Christensen, WGM Katerina Nemtsova, Kelly Palmer, I am Kostya Kravrutsky, Krishna Gopala Krishnan, Laura Beliavsky, Lucio Casada Silva, Matthew Passy, Martin Habich, Matthew Tedesco of SeattleChessMeetup.org, the mysterious Moon Master 9000, Mr. Michael Shahadi, Nate Salon, Nathan Webster, GM Pascal Charbonneau, Passy Passanen, Paul Bain, Paul Clarkson, Paul Sweeney, Paulo Santana, Peter Lux, Peter Merrifield, Randy Temple, Ricky Grijalva, Rob Lazorchek of DiplomatChess.com, Robert Steiner, Ryan Berg, Scott Doherty, Scott McKinnon, Steiner Lima, the Law Office of Stuart Katz, WGM Tatyev Abrahamian, Thomas Casper, Thomas Stanek, Thomas Tachenko, Tim Brennan of TacticsTime.com. His book is coming to Chessable. Tim Seymour, Timothy Ha, Tony Rotella, Tyron Price, Victor Vrinkush, FM Zhao Cheng of Chess1000.com, and Zhivko Stoyanov. Thank you, everyone, and I will catch you all next week.